Hey everybody, my name is Rylee Peacock and welcome to the first day of the Tween and Teen Summer Reading Program. This week we're going to be dissecting barn owl pellets. It's going to be really interesting and I hope you enjoy it. But first I'm going to set up my little station here and we're going to get started. Alright, so when you're taking make bags you're going to find the following tools. You're going to find your little deli cup inside this plastic bag, your skewer, your tweezers, and your owl pellet wrapped in foil. I'm going to set aside this bag right over here and we're actually going to get right into dissecting this pellet. Interesting fact, a lot of people mistake owl pellets as their waste or their poop, and that's actually not what it is. What an owl pellet is the undigested remains of the animal's food, which means they regurgitate it after they're done eating the food and digesting, and it looks just like this. It's this nice little ball of just some fur, and after we dissect it, I'm going to show you there's going to be some bones in here. But make sure your workstation is nice and clean, nice and clear. I'm going to set this over here because this is actually where we're going to put the bones inside, just like that. And I'm going to get started dissecting this. So barn owls are actually predatory animals, which means barn owls will eat prey animals such as small rodents and other small birds. And when they regurgitate this pellet, a lot of the times feathers and fur will actually remain in this pellet. The cool thing about these owl pellets is that people who actually work towards preserving wildlife, they'll use these pellets to figure out, okay, what is an owl eating? Is the diet good? Are there enough prey animals for their food in order to sustain the population of that bird? So as you can see here, we actually have a bone right here, and we're gonna use a little chart later on in the video to identify what types of bones these are. And you can follow along at home as I'm identifying what I get in my owl pellet later on, but I'm going to put that in my little deli cup. And you're going to want to be very, very gentle with these owl pellets because the bones inside are very small and very delicate. So as you can see, I'm just being very, very careful, picking away very gently around the little bones that may be exposed as I go along. And the cool thing about this is that once you're picking it apart, a lot of the times what you're going to be picking at, this is fur right here. This is the fur from the animal that the owl had previously eaten. And you can just kind of set it aside as you're going along because you might want to go through it a little bit because actually, great example, I would have thrown this away if I wasn't paying attention. This is another bone that was just left in that pile of fur there. So I'm going to put that to the side. And I'm just going to keep going here and very carefully, very meticulously go through and find all of the bones that are inside this owl pellet, just like that, see? Putting them in my little cup. And a cool thing about this little pick here is that it's nice and long, and so you can kind of stick it in there and kind of rough up that fur a little bit, or those feathers, whatever you might have. And that's going to break it up nice and loosely, and you're going to find a whole bunch of little bones in there. Some examples of the prey animals that owls will eat are meadow voles. They're similar to mice. They will eat mice and rats and smaller weasels. They'll even eat little birds. I know a lot of the times when an owl is in a sanctuary, they'll actually feed them chicks, like baby chickens and everything like that. So you'll find probably a wide variety of different types of bone in your owl pellet. If you guys actually want to post a picture down in the comments below of what bones you find, I am actually going to go over very briefly towards the end of this video of how to clean and whiten the bones that you find if you want to keep them. This does require quite a bit of patience and attention, and the cool thing about this is that you don't have to sit down and do it all at once. You can take little breaks in between. You can make sure, whoops, I'll go get that later. But you can take little breaks in between and make sure that you're just getting everything done. You don't have to get this done all in the same day by any means, but this is just a fun little interesting way to learn about what owls will eat on the regular basis. And as you can see, every time I just find a little bone, I take a second and I put it right in that little cup so I don't lose anything. Because as you can see, these are very, very tiny and very fragile, and you don't want to try your best not to break them, but it's okay if a few do. Don't worry about it too much. And oh, I think we've got a lucky one. Look, it looks like we may have a skull in here. That'd be really cool to show you guys. And I'm sure you may be able to find a skull in yours. And if you do, just be very gentle, because again, everything in here is very, very fragile. Whoa, okay, look at this. This I can tell right off the bat, this is a jawbone, and I'm going to assume that this is from a meadow vole. It's a type of rodent that is commonly found in fields and grassy areas. And that, look at that. If you guys can see really close up in there, there are some teeth in there. And this right here, that's a tooth as well. Look how sharp that is. Isn't that crazy? Nice and tiny, but we're just gonna put that right down in there. Maybe we'll be lucky and find another one, because usually a skull will have two jawbones. But it looks like right in here, if I'm really gentle and peel this away, looks like there's a skull right in here. So I'm gonna keep going at it, but I'm gonna be very gentle with it and go very slow and make sure that I'm being very careful with these fragile little bones. There's another one right there. Sometimes too, you'll find some pelvic bones, you'll find some vertebrae from the spine. You're gonna find little teeth in there every once in a while. Some skull caps like this one here. This one's nice and interesting. Hold on, let me clear this out a little bit so I can show you guys. Look at that. So what this is here is, you can see there's a little hole, if you guys can see that, right in the middle that I can stick my tweezers through. That is actually the back of a skull from an animal that actually fell off while it was being digested. But that's just the back right there where the spinal cord would have gone through on the animal right there. So we're going to put that in the little cup. And we're going to go through and we're going to keep going very carefully. You're going to find a lot of little fragments like this. If you want to, you can keep them. Personally, I usually don't. Sometimes I'll go back through and look at them later just to see if they're little teeth or something like that. But 9 chances out of 10, they're usually just these little bone fragments that are still interesting, but they're a little harder to keep track of. Just a little tip for you guys, if you find that this is getting a little dusty around you from dissecting this owl pellet, I suggest wearing a face covering or even doing this outside or in a well-ventilated area. It's not necessarily going to hurt you, but it can get a little annoying and maybe even make you sneeze a little bit. But that's just my tip to you guys. If it starts getting a little dusty and a little bit too much to handle, you might want to step outside or put a mask on just so you can easily dissect this pellet. But look at that, just like I was thinking, we found a second jawbone in that pellet. All those little teeth in there, if you can see those, and that nice sharp tooth right there. And these are the bottom jaws of whatever animal that owl had previously eaten. Look at that. And as you can see, we're slowly exposing this skull right here, and I'm going to be very gentle because a lot of the times these skulls are very thin and they can very easily break. Don't sweat too much if it cracks a little bit. Stuff happens and that's okay. But this does require a lot of patience and a lot of attention to detail, so you just want to be nice and careful once trying to find these bones. This right here is a great example of a few other things you're gonna find. This is a rib bone. Look at how teeny tiny that is. You're gonna find ones that are even smaller than this and thinner than this. Oh, but see, that was a great example right there. I moved a little too quickly and I actually broke the tip right off. Not a big deal, it's totally okay, but we're actually just going to take that and set it right inside of our little cup. Alright, look at that. So after you clear away a little bit more of this fur and everything, this is a skull. And like I said before, I'm pretty sure this may be a meadow vole, one of those little rodents that are really commonly found in fields. But you just gotta be really careful to try and get that fur out of the skull. And look at that. These are the teeth right here. These are their two little front teeth that they use to bite right down. Right on the bottom here, this is the top two rows of teeth right here and right here. You can see those. And then this would be where their eyes would be, right in here in these little crevices. And as you can see, it is missing the back of the skull. That's just because this bone is so thin that it probably either broke off or it even may have gotten digested. But that's a really good find right there. And I really hope you guys would be able to find a skull. But if you don't worry about it. It's just one of those really cool, interesting finds that you may have or you may not have. But I'm sure whatever you find in your owl pellet is freaking awesome. I'm gonna keep going with this owl pellet to see what else I can find. And oh, yep. I'm assuming that this is the back of the skull that we just exposed there. It's all broken up, which is okay. That's to be expected. Like I said before, it's a very thin piece of bone. So we're just gonna set that down right there and continue dissecting the remainder of this owl pellet very carefully. Okay, so now that I have my owl pellet completely dissected, I actually separated out the bones for you guys, and I'm going to go over what I found in mine and what specific bones look like. So the bones that actually look just like this, these ones are a type of pelvic bone here. And along with these ones are hind legs. These ones are a type of femur bone, which are also a part of the hind legs. And these little guys right over here are rib bones. These are really tiny. And I was actually lucky enough to find a little bit of a vertebrae or a piece of a spine in mine. Those ones are really interesting. And then down here, we've got the pile of fur or feathers that made up the majority of the pellet. And right here, we actually have two jaw bones. This is a tooth, this is a skull cap, and this is a skull. Just like that. All together, this made a pretty interesting mix of what you may or may not find in your owl pellet at home. Okay everybody, so now that that's complete, I'm actually just going to really briefly talk to you about how you can clean and actually whiten the bones that you found in your owl pellets. What you can do is take these little bones, very carefully get a small cup of warm water, put a little bit of dish soap in there, stir it around a little bit, and actually let them soak for about a day, so overnight would be completely fine. And then after that, what you're going to do is remove any remaining fur or anything else that you may find stuck to the bone. You can just take that off with the pair of tweezers that were provided in the kit for you. And then after that, you can actually take some hydrogen peroxide. What you're going to do is actually wait for about as little as an hour or as long as overnight. It just depends on how white you actually want those bones afterwards. And then after you're done with that, make sure they're rinsed off, dried, and you can either put them in a little jar, you can display them or glue them onto like a little piece of paper, a little piece of cardboard, whatever you want to do. You can label them, that's up to you. But I hope you guys had a really fun time dissecting these owl pellets. I sure did, and I would really like to see what you guys found in yours. And I hope you learned something today and had a lot of fun. And if you stay tuned for next week's video, we're actually going to be doing candy sushi, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you have your take and make bag kits around for that one, and I'll catch you guys next week. See ya.